What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In this video today, we're going to learn how to do financial text sentiment analysis in Python using a language model from Hugging Face. So let us get right into it. Alright, so we're going to learn how to do financial text sentiment analysis in Python today, which means we're going to take a look at the most recent financial articles surrounding a specific topic, and we're going to analyze these articles in terms of their sentiment. So we're going to use a language model to tell us whether the articles are positive, negative, or neutral. We're going to then aggregate the results for multiple articles and come up with an overall sentiment about this topic at this point in time. Now, this can be used in a number of different ways. One very simple way to use it is to just incorporate the information into your decision-making process, into your analysis of a stock or a commodity, for example. So, for example, if you see that the sentiment is very positive but getting more and more negative over time, that might be something that you might want to consider. If it gets more and more positive over time, if it stays the same but is very positive or very negative, this might also be interesting. So that is one way to use that. But in this video, what I want to mention is that none of the things I'm saying here are financial advice. I'm not a financial professional, so whatever I show you here is just programming advice, how you can do that. I'm showing you how you can build this tool for yourself. Whatever you do with it is up to you. None of the information here is a call to action or a recommendation on how to invest. I'm just showing you how to build a tool that could be useful maybe in your decision process or in your analysis. So having said all that, the model that we're going to use in this video today is called Finbert. You can find it on Hugging Face. It's by Process AI, and it's a pre-trained NLP, so natural language processing model, that analyzes the sentiment of financial text. Now, this specialization here is very important because certain terms can have different meanings in different contexts, different connotations. So a term might be very positive or negative only in a financial context, and it can be neutral or the opposite in another context. So we want to have a model that is trained on financial text and not on text in general. Now, if you want to play around with this model before actually using it, you can use it here in the Inference API, or you can test it here in the Inference API. You can just type in some text and compute the sentiment. In this case, we have stocks rallied and the British pound gained, which is 89.8% positive, 6.7% neutral, and 3.4% negative. All of this obviously adds up to 1 because it has to be 100%. So you can play around with it to see how well it works. And then if you want to use it, you can click here on Use This Model to get some sample code for the Transformers package in Python. In this case, we're going to use this part here where we can import a pipeline and load the model here as a pipeline. So we just have to feed in the text into the pipeline object. In addition to that, we need to have news sources. So we need to have either an API or a feed, or we need to do some scraping or something to get articles into our code so that we can analyze the sentiment of the articles. Now for this, I want to show you two different approaches just so you're not just familiar with one of them. So you have a more versatile set of sample code here. So the first one is going to be the Yahoo Finance News, which is going to be an RSS feed. So in the first example, we're going to parse an RSS feed. In the second one, we're going to use News API for no special reason. They're not sponsoring the video or anything. It's just a simple API where you can get a free API key and access to news data. And in this case, we're not going to parse an RSS feed. We're going to actually use an API key to send requests and get results as a response. So these are going to be the two examples today. What we're going to do first is we're going to open up a command line and we're going to install the packages necessary for these two projects or codes. The first one is going to be obviously Transformers for loading and using the model. The second one is going to be Feed Parser, which is only necessary if you want to use an RSS feed. And the third one is going to be the Requests package, which is necessary for sending and processing HTTP requests easily in Python. So once you have these three packages installed, we can start with the first script, which is going to start by importing the feed parser package. And then we're going to also use the sample code here. So just use this model, copy this, paste it into your code, and now you have the Finbert pipeline ready to use. So what you can do now is you can actually also just copy this text here and see how this works. So we can just go ahead and say print pipe and then the text here from the example. I can run this and I will get a response. Now you can see I get some warnings here because I have a messed up setup here when it comes to TensorFlow and CUDA and so on. But what you can see here is I already get a result with a label positive and a score of 0.898, which is exactly the same I get in the browser. We only get the top result, so we only get positive. We don't get the score for the other options. But the first time you run this, it will take some time. It has to download all the dependencies or all the models onto your system, and you also need to have hardware that's capable of running all this. But after the first time, it should be faster and you should get a result quite quickly. So in this case, you can see I passed the text. I got the label positive and the score 0.898. So this is what we're going to do. Instead of feeding in static text, we're going to load text from the Yahoo Finance RSS feed, and we're going to feed it into the pipeline to get the sentiment. We're going to do that for a couple of articles, and then we're going to aggregate the results to get an overall score. So the first thing is we need to define the RSS URL. So RSS URL is going to be equal to https://finance.yahoo.com/RSS/headline equals, or actually question mark, s equals, and then a term that we want to search for. So we're actually saying I want to get the articles from the RSS feed where the headline contains a certain query. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to define two variables. First of all, the ticker, and second of all, the keyword. Now, for some reason, this only works when I pass an actual ticker symbol. So if I pass something like NVIDIA, it's not going to find it. I have to pass NVDA, so the ticker symbol of NVIDIA. If I pass Goldman Sachs, it's not going to work. I have to pass GS. I don't know why. Maybe there is some different setting that you can use here to get different results. So what we're going to do here is we're going to provide a ticker symbol, for example, Meta, which is the name and a ticker symbol. And then we also can provide a keyword. Now, this keyword will not be part of the URL. It will be part of our filtering process, because the problem is, or not necessarily the problem, but the thing with this API or with this RSS feed, I should say, is that some of the articles come up when you type a certain ticker symbol, but they're not really about that ticker symbol. So you might type Meta as a ticker symbol, and you might get an article describing the top 20 AI companies right now, which is a post that is not really about Meta. So it might be not the best source to analyze the sentiment about Meta, because 19 other stocks are in there with positive or negative statements. So we might want to also check if a certain keyword is present in the summary or in the title of the article. So we can say Meta here as well. The important thing is here we only want to introduce our ticker symbol. So we need to actually make this an F string. We put an F before the string, and then we put ticker in curly brackets so that it's part of the string. Now, this RSS URL, we now feed into a feed parser. So we say that the feed is going to be equal to feed parser.parse RSS URL. And now what I want to do is I want to keep track of a total score, which is going to start at 0. And I want to keep track of the number of articles that I'm using, because as I said, we're not going to use all the articles that come up. We want to filter them based on a keyword, for example. I'm going to say 0 here as well. And then we're going to iterate over the individual entries of the feed. So I'm going to say for I entry in enumerate feed.entries. And here I'm going to do the filtering now. If keyword lower is part of entry.summary.lower. So if the keyword that I'm looking for, Meta in this case, regardless of the case, occurs in the summary, then I want to look at that article. Because if the article is top 20 AI companies, probably Meta is not going to be necessarily part of the most dense summary of that article. So in that case, I don't want to, in this case, I want to look at the art, or in this case, I don't want to look at the article. If it is in the summary, I want to look at the article because I assume that the post is focused on Meta then. Now you can also go a more extreme way and filter for the title. So you can say if the keyword is in the title, but then you're going to get fewer articles to look at. So that's a trade-off here. If that's the case, however, so if the keyword is, or actually I should say, if the keyword is not in the summary, I want to continue. So I want to skip this iteration. Otherwise, I'm going to do the following. I can print some information here. Let's use an F string. Let's say the title is entry.title. And let's do that now for link and published and summary. And let's also use the respective fields here, just so we can see what the article is about. And then what we want to do is we want to calculate the sentiment from our, or we want to get the sentiment from our language model. So I'm going to say sentiment is equal to pipe entry dot summary. So I want to use the summary of the entry as a basis here for the analysis. And we saw earlier that we get a list of dictionaries. Even though it's just one dictionary in there, we have to select the 0th index to get the one object that's in the list. And this sentiment object has, remember, a label and a score. So we're going to print here, sentiment is going to be sentiment label, and score is going to be sentiment score. All right, and then we can print some separator here, so something like this 40 times. And this is just going to print the information. Now, what we also want to do is we want to add or remove from the total score. Now, you can come up with some more reasonable metric here. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to keep it very simply. I'm going to just look at the label. So if it's positive, I'm going to add to the score. If it's negative, I'm going to remove from the score, or I'm going to subtract from the score. And how much I add or subtract will just be the confidence, so the score. So I'm going to say if the sentiment label, if that is equal to positive, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say total score plus equals sentiment score. Otherwise, if the sentiment label is equal to negative, I'm going to subtract the score. Now, we also have the possibility of neutral. In this case, I don't want to do anything. But I want to make sure that I only increase the number of articles, which I misspelled here. I want to increase the number of articles only if it's either positive or negative. I don't want to consider the neutral ones. So I'm going to say plus equals 1 here and plus equals 1 here. And that's basically it. At the end of the loop, what I want to do is I want to calculate the final score. I want to say final score is equal to total score divided by the number of articles. So an average score if you want. And then I'm going to print the overall sentiment. And for this here, I'm going to say it's going to be positive if the total score exceeds or is equal to 0.15. Else, I want to use negative. I need to use double quotations. Negative if the total score is below or equal to negative 0.15, and in all other cases, it's going to be neutral. And we also want to print the final score itself. All right, so that is our code. Let's see by running it if it produces some problems. If not, I can go through it again to explain what we did. So there you go. You can see it loads some articles here. Is Meta stock a buy as Facebook parent bounces back from July slump? Now in this case here we have magnificent 7 stocks, but Meta is part of the title and part of the summary, which is why this is still included. But you can see we get a sentiment for each of those and a score. So how confident it is that it's that sentiment. So this one is positive and very confident. So it says Meta stock is climbing back toward record highs from early July, which is obviously very positive, and so on. And the overall sentiment is positive. Now I can do the same thing for a different ticker symbol. For example, for let's go Goldman Sachs, or actually let's go with Boeing. They had some controversies. I'm not sure if this is going to matter, but let's go and look for Boeing, which is BA. And here we get a negative sentiment, at least right now. And you can also scroll through these articles to see why this might be the case. Yeah, you can see that most of the articles are not very positive. We can also go for something like gold, which I think recently has decreased in value. I'm not sure. But for gold, what we would have to do is we would have to use the ticker symbol. I have it here on my second screen. GC equals F, and the keyword would be gold. These are just the ticker symbols of the Yahoo Finance API. You can look them up at Yahoo Finance, or you can just Google them, or you know them. But here now the sentiment for gold is slightly positive with 0.07. Actually, this is a problem because actually we should go with final score, not total score, because the final score is what we're interested in. And then it should be neutral, I guess, because it was 0.07. Yeah. A couple of days ago it was negative, now it's neutral. So this is, as I said, this can also be used to analyze the development over time. So if it's very negative for a long time and then it becomes positive, this might be a good indication that yeah, things are getting better. Maybe you want to buy. Again, not financial advice, just exploring a possibility. But this is how you can do that with the Yahoo Finance API. Again, you have an RSS feed, you load the feed or you parse the feed, you iterate over the individual articles, you get the summary, you calculate the sentiment, and then we summarize it, or we aggregate it and get an overall score, which we divide by the number of articles. And yeah, this can be used like this. Now, the second source will be News API. So News API is this website here. Again, not in any way affiliated. It's just a simple News API where you can get an API key for free. And I will probably have to censor the API keys here, which is unfortunate because I now showed the website. It doesn't matter. But the idea here is that we're not going to load it from an RSS feed. We're going to use a request to send an API request to this platform, and we're going to analyze their news articles. Again, the only reason I'm showing two approaches here is that you're not fixated on only one way to do that. There are multiple news sources. There are also news sources that have their own Python package. So there's a number of different ways. You can also download them. You can scrape them yourself. It doesn't really matter. You just need some articles that you can look at and some text that you can perform sentiment analysis on, some financial text. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to call this main2py, and we're going to adjust the code so that it works with the News API. Now, how are we going to do that? We're going to do that in this case by defining only a keyword and a date. The reason here is that we're not using specifically just a finance API. We're using actually a news API. The text is still going to be financial when we talk about stocks and gold and so on, for the most part, but yeah, this is why we don't have a ticker symbol. We just have a keyword that we search for and a date that we're interested in. So I'm going to say the date here is going to be the 18th of August 2024. The reason I'm using a past date is because with the free version where you have the API key for free, you get the data delayed by 1 day. So I could actually also go with 20th or 21st, but I'm going to just go with the 18th. And what we need to change now is we need to change this part. We're no longer going to use feed parser. We're going to use the requests package. And we're going to define the URL as a string as follows. We're going to use this feature of Python where we can use parentheses to combine strings over multiple lines. We're going to say https /newsapi.org/version2 or v2/everything ? And then we're going to use an f string where we're going to say q equals and then the keyword. So this is our search query, so to say. Then we're going to use another f string, which is going to be from, which is going to be the date. So from the specified date. Then we're going to say sort by is equal to popularity. So we want to have the most popular articles first. And then we want to use and API key is equal to, and then I'm going to load the API key here from a file. API key is going to be equal to open. I already have it in the file here. API key read. I'm going to pass it here, make this, of course, an f string, and then we have our URL. Now the response is going to be equal to requests.get URL, and the articles are going to be part of the resulting JSON object. So articles is going to be equal to response.json, and then from here we want to have the field articles. And then we want to say that the articles are going to be the following: list comprehension, article for article in articles if keyword lower is part of article title, or keyword dot lower is part of article description dot lower. We shouldn't forget that. So we want all of this to be not case sensitive. All right. So we get all the articles, and then we say articles is equal to article for article in articles. And when we have that, the rest of the code is actually almost the same. Just that this time now we have for this in articles, and we change entry here. We replace entry with articles or article. And we also don't want to have title, link, published, and summary. We want to have article title is actually still valid. Then we also want to have article URL, not link, and article description here. And we obviously apply all of this not onto the summary. We apply this time onto content, so onto the full content of the article. So sentiment is pipe article content, and that then is going to result in the exact same thing as before. So we don't need to change anything else. The only thing we change is how we get the information. We use the news API. We have an API key. What exactly is this? From prepared, I actually imported something from my prepared videos. Okay, but now we have the same process. We just have a different format. We have different keys and different values. And now when I run this, we're going to see that I get a similar result. So it's going to load. No, I have no articles. So let's use a different keyword. Let's go with something like, or actually, I think that this should not be a problem. So maybe the problem is somewhere else. Let me just see. We have keyword. Oh, sorry. The problem is I need to use an and at the end of each of these f strings. So now it should work. No. Okay, we're still using summary somewhere. Where is that? Oh. We don't need this check here, obviously, because we're doing it in the list comprehension. But now, there you go. We have the articles, we have the title, and we have, actually, this should be called description, not published. But it doesn't really matter now. And we get the overall sentiment at this particular point in time was negative, quite negative. Now let's see if it changed if we look at yesterday. Maybe. Okay, now it's neutral. So it seems to have changed over the last couple of days. But this is how you can do that with a different news source. You can do that now with any news source. You can do that with a static historic data set if you want to backtest something. If you want to build a trading strategy on based on this, and you have a bunch of financial historic data or financial articles, historic articles. But yeah, this is how you can do financial text sentiment analysis in Python. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you much for watching. See you in the next video and bye.